Okay, so you hear this word everywhere, right? On the news, at the grocery store, when you open your bills. Inflation. It's this quiet force that's always shaping our financial lives. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it all works.
I mean, you're not just imagining it. You know that feeling when your grocery bill just keeps creeping up, or the price at the pump seems to have a mind of its own? Yeah, that's inflation in action. Let's break down what is really going on here.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll cover what inflation actually is. Then, we'll get into why it happens. We're also going to look at this tricky thing called the wage price spiral, figure out who's in charge of taming it, and finally, talk about the delicate balancing act that keeps our economy on track.
So let's start with the absolute basics. What are we actually talking about when we all say inflation? Now, the key word here is general. Inflation isn't just about the price of one thing, like milk going up. It's the average cost of pretty much everything rising. And what that means is the dollar in your pocket today will buy a little less than it did yesterday. That's what economists call a loss of purchasing power.
Let's put a number on it to make it real. If inflation is running at 5%, that basket of groceries that cost you $100 last year, well, this year it's going to cost you $105. It's the exact same stuff, you're just paying more for it. Your money's ability to do its job has gotten weaker.
So, how do they even come up with a number like 5%? Well, economists use something called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. The best way to think about it is like a giant national shopping list. It tracks the prices of all sorts of everyday things, from a gallon of gas and a loaf of bread to what you're paying in rent and for doctor visits.
Okay, so we know what inflation is, but why do prices go up in the first place? Well, it really boils down to two main economic forces, a push and a pull.
So you've got two sides of the same coin here, demand pull and cost push. And you can think of it pretty simply. Either too many people want to buy something which pulls the price up, or it just gets more expensive to make that thing which pushes the price up. Let's look at demand pull first.
Demand pull inflation is that classic scenario of too much money chasing too few goods. You see this when the economy is booming and people have more money to spend. If the demand for products starts to outpace the supply, well, sellers can, and they definitely do, raise prices.
Then you've got the other side, cost push inflation. This happens when the cost of actually making things goes up. Maybe oil prices surge, a supply chain gets all tangled up, or workers' wages increase. Businesses aren't just going to eat those new costs. They pass them along to us, and we see it as a higher price tag at the store.
Now, this is where things can get really, really tricky. These two forces don't exist in a vacuum. In fact, they can feed on each other, creating a pretty dangerous cycle.
And that's what we call the wage price spiral. It starts with prices going up. Pretty naturally, workers see this and realize they need more money just to afford things, so they ask for raises. But for businesses, higher wages mean higher costs. So what do? You guessed it, they raise prices again to cover those costs. And around we go, with each step just pushing inflation even higher.
So, if inflation can just spiral out of control like that, who hits the brakes? Who's actually responsible for taming this economic beast?
In most countries, that job falls to the central bank. Here in the US, that's the Federal Reserve. And they have a whole toolbox of strategies that they call monetary policy, all designed to keep prices stable.
So out of that whole toolbox, what's the biggest lever they can pull to steer the economy?
It's interest rates, hands down. Think of the economy like a car. By raising or lowering interest rates, which is basically the cost of borrowing money, central banks can either hit the brakes to slow things down, or they can step on the gas to speed things up.
So when inflation is running hot, the central bank raises interest rates. That makes everything from mortgages to car loans more expensive. The whole point is to get people and companies to borrow and spend less, which cools down demand. And, of course, when the economy is sluggish, they do the exact opposite. They lower rates to make borrowing cheaper and encourage everyone to spend.
And this brings us to our final and maybe most important point. The goal isn't actually to get rid of inflation completely. It's all a very careful balancing act.
Because the opposite of inflation, something called deflation, where prices are actually falling, can be even more dangerous. I know, it sounds great, right? Cheaper stuff for everyone. But think about it. If you expect prices to keep falling, you'll just delay buying things. That causes demand to just collapse, which leads to lower profits, layoffs, and a really serious economic downturn.
And that's why most central banks don't aim for zero inflation. Instead, they target a low, stable rate, usually right around 2% per year. This is considered the sweet spot. It's just enough to encourage spending and keep the economy growing, but not so high that it totally erodes the value of people's savings.
Now, to really understand your own finances, you have to know the difference between nominal and real value. Nominal is easy. It's the number that's actually printed on your paycheck. But real is what truly matters. It's what that money can actually buy after you factor in the effects of inflation.
Look at it this way. Let's say you get a 5% raise. Awesome. That's your nominal or on-paper increase. But if inflation for that year was 4%, your real increase in purchasing power is only 1%. Inflation just silently ate up the other 4%. This is the critical reason why a raise doesn't always mean you're actually getting ahead. So it's pretty clear that inflation isn't just some abstract number for economists to worry about. It is a constant force that changes the value of our money day in and day out. And that leaves us with a really crucial question. When the goalposts are always moving, how does that change the way you decide to save, spend, and plan for your future?